Though the basis of the problem is the digital screen and overuse of it, I have made the talk more family-centered, so I call it Kids Family Connect. KFC, and have you heard of any other KFC? So Kids Family Connect, CN. So there won't be any brand issues. And if children keep their potential without messing up their brain tracks with the digital screen, they will do their curriculum, career and choices, and I should add character best. Otherwise all four get messed up. And my thesis is that without doctors prescribing for problems that look like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD and other different things, without prescribing drugs, resort to what we have been pioneering, empathic learning therapy and empathic motor therapy. Learning therapy is easy to understand, handicraft, art, crafts, board games. Empathic motor therapy is using the grip and fingers, toes, rhythmic movement to get the brain tracks back into learning mode, because when we do a lot of grips and toes, like the way little fellows are crawling and doing building blocks and matty molding and so on, that is what keeps their brain tracks interconnected. And the digital screen mediated addiction is mediated by dopamine. So if you get little fellows to move their fingers and toes in a rhythmic way, you will presently see how, then you suppress the dopamine and their drivenness to do the same repetitive thing. Did you understand that? That is called empathic motor therapy. So that's a new thing. So before you go, you can go to our fourth floor, we call it Den and Dare, how to get them back into thinking tracks, planning tracks, because that system of why we give little fellows not the smartphone, but building blocks, matty molding, clay molding, puzzles, fitting the pieces, you know, and any amount of crawling on their toes and knees and so on, is also building the brain tracks. Did you understand that? So to put a child on the screen without getting the child to be interactive with physical things is really child abuse. It's a terrible thing. Come and sit in front, come. Hi, we had to start because we were getting late. So that's why we have called this Kids Family Connect, making the family and the parents responsible for developing their children's best potential, isn't it? That's what it is. So this is from the Word of God, which describes the generation that would come. There is a generation that curses their father and does not bless their mother. So this generation's problem is more with the dad being absent, and they have a ongoing trouble because dad was not there in their formative years. So when a young person is passing 12, you must be more in their life, dad, and for that to happen, when they are younger, you have to become their friend. Because after 13, they think peers are their friends, isn't it? So you have to be their friend before that. And for that, I suggest daily that you must do a new step, a little stride, a little stretch with the little fellow, which only dad can do. You know, when he's getting onto the tricycle, from the tricycle to the bicycle, you know, there are things that little fellows remember, isn't it? As for me, I got on from the tricycle to the bicycle when I was 16 years old. Yeah, because my parents was too scared to put me on a bicycle. They wanted to protect my brain, which was of course a fantastic brain, but but you know what I mean, those milestones that children remember, that should be very interactive. Then they remember that any new thing, any brilliant thing, any daring thing, Dad is the one who introduces me to that kind of thing. So when later school friends or others offer drugs or pornography or anything that is daring and risky, child thinks I better ask Dad, because he always told me what's the next best thing to do. So you must be in that relationship when the kids are passing 12. After 13, 14, they listen to their peers more than to their parents. Also at the age of 13, our brain tracks go through a complete edit, so that whatever you have done till the age of 14 with your brain tracks is what you have for the rest of your life. So we have to get our kids to be very creative, brain brilliant in their very small days. Usually parents think of children doing well with their brains, or you know what I mean, much later. But by that time their potential is decided. So be very brain active, creative in a family setup by the time they arrive at 13 and 14. So this generation curses their father, meaning they have a very diminished view of father. Somehow they manage with their mother mostly, which is not a good thing, which is a default position. So as I said, father must keep 7 p.m. at least as the family hour. Plan to do something nice, read a nice good book, do some board games, and after dinner only you must address a corrective position. And meal time must be always children friendly. Meal time must be the time you discuss things that are very good for the child and child is very interested. That's what meal time is. If you want to criticize the government, you must go to the washroom, close the door and shout at each other as much as possible. Don't do critical things at meal time. So tell your neighbor, don't do critical things at meal time. Meal time must be the brain happy, family happy time. So there's a generation pure in their own eyes, that is not washed from their own filth, so they get into risk experiments because of the push of the digital screen. Digital screen merges the boundary between safe and risk. Every digital game you have to take more risk, more risk. Risk is addictive, and as you know, those who design digital games make it more and more addictive. That's the purpose of getting a child into a digital game. It is designed for addiction, designed for you to do more of the same thing. There is a generation of how lofty are their eyes and their eyelids are lifted up. So increasingly they think of fantastic stuff and not the regular. They are thinking of becoming, pilots. A girl came who was 15 years old from a good school in Colombo, and I could see that she was a bright girl, and she was very moody and frustrated and doesn't look up. Came with Dad. So I asked, my first question always is, what is your best subject at school? She said, I hate all my school subjects. She just shouted at, it was at my consultation table, so Dad got very worried. I said, it's okay, I'm used to this. And then I said, what is it you like then? She said, I'm an author. I said, where do you publish? She said, on the internet. Now she's 15 years old and getting ready for the O-level. I said, what do you publish on? She said, planets that have not been discovered. So you can see how shifted their reality is from what they should be doing. This is not an extreme case, one way or the other. That's the pitch of their mindset, because the pixel screen pushed them that way, to the fantastic, supernormal. Some people get involved with occult also for that reason, because they're all the time experimenting with the paranormal, isn't it? Abnormal, or out of day-to-day life is their pitch. So when they are present, you must not criticize them. You must speak on their side, and parents must not get into fisticuffs with them. So when I give my booklet out, I always tell the parent, don't fight with them, teach them the science, read the science with them, learn together, they are amenable to science. So when parents come to consult me, they want to tell me a lot of things that are wrong with the child. I don't allow them to speak because I already know what's wrong with the child. I get the child to engage my diagrams and the science, and over about 35-40 minutes they come to agreement. I must reduce screen time and that kind of thing. Yes. So it's generation that are always, their thoughts are too lofty, unachievable. So we have to give them practical, pragmatic things that they can actually do and succeed. That do and succeed, initiate and be rewarded is an hourly thing. I will come to that. Otherwise they all the time live in the experimental, fantastic world which gets more and more weird. There's a generation whose teeth are like swords and their jaw teeth like knives, because their language gets very violent, Stupid is one of the better words they use. Stupid, absurd, they are quite nasty with their words, so parents have to not get upset, but prevent that phenomenon, because there's a generation that use words like that. So this is what determines how much the pixel screen affects the brain tracts and the studies. So that's my theme. How much the pixel screen affects the brain processing. It affects neuronal pattern. Neurons in our brain are designed by God to fire in a certain unidirectional firing order. One thing at a time, says the brain. Pixel screen says many things at a time. So multitasking, doing this, that and the other, changing screen, that's how the pixel screen goes, isn't it? But brain is designed actually to do one thing at a time. So these are some of the things that the pixel screen does wrong. Time length of exposure to LED screen for fast activity should not be more than 25 minutes. That is to say, this is not about you doing Word document or Excel or PowerPoint, but certainly when children are studying online, the pixel screen input is a lot. So you have to, there are things I teach, I'll come to that slide. While on online, what to do? For instance, as much as possible, don't look at the screen unless there's a graphic call. So you have to train kids without looking at the screen, only listen. But then sometimes you have diagrams and so on. Then don't keep LED lights where your kid is studying. LED lights also have blue frequency, and that makes the pixel screen effect worse. So in your bedroom also don't have blue LED lights. In your washroom in the night also don't have LED lights, and don't get up in the middle of the night and look at your smartphone either, because it disturbs what melatonin is doing in your brain. So our brain has a brilliant refurbishment program, begins at 6 p.m. and intensifies after 10 p.m. Melatonin is the thing that is working in your brain for you to see dreams. So brain must go through dream time, no dream time, that's called REM sleep, non-REM sleep. It keeps about 3 to 4 cycles. Initial dreams are always bad dreams, like Sri Lanka all getting out for 55, which never happens, isn't it? So you initially see bad dreams. Then as you, later in the morning, you should wake up with a good dream. If you wake up with a alarming dream, that means you didn't have normal sleep. You probably disturbed your sleep with pixel screen or whatever else. So another thing a child should be told is, when they are studying, if they, as soon as they stop the book, get onto the screen, the data of studying, the data that you studied is still in your RAM, random access memory, which is your hippocampus. It's there. So now if you play the screen just after studying, the screen gives you a lot of rapid data, isn't it? Then what you study, you can't remember. Same thing happens, so you study with the screen and the book, and then you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning. You can't remember what you have studied. Then you say, teacher is horrible, can't go to school, shoes are bad. They have a litany of complaints because they are not confident what they studied stayed in their brain. So soon after study, don't get to the screen for other activity. Similarly, having been on the screen, if you start studying, you are reading the book, but it's not getting committed to memory. Because the pixel screen has jumbled your neurons to entertainment mode, which is multidirectional firing, and also your neurochemicals have also changed to dopamine doing addictive than dopamine doing salience. I'll come to that track soon. And depending on the pixels per inch of your gadget, your brain will be more affected. So for studies, it's better to use laptops which have a lower PPI. PPI is pixel per inch. Smartphones, iPad, tabs all have a higher PPI. So better to get the fellow a laptop when they have to do online studies. The PPI of a laptop is less. Also laptops have the night mode, isn't it? I'm told some smartphones also have a night mode. But when the market creates a problem and market supplies a solution, it is like IMF giving us loans. Got the point? Yeah. So I don't trust the solutions the market offers for problems created by the market. As you know, the same issue is there with pharmaceuticals and doctors. So there are things that it's for the market's sake. Then very fast cartoons, pixels keep changing, intense and variability of sound and color. Time exposure effect is more after 6 p.m. So after 6 p.m. somehow kids must be trained to use the screen less. But today the problem is a lot of tuition classes go on till 10, 11, isn't it? It's really foolish to have tuition classes after 9. Because after 9 the child must get ready to store the data that the child has been studying during the day. Other thing is, unless the child studies for a 4-hour stretch without pixel intervention, the temporary data that gets stored in the hippocampus will not get into the prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking cortex. Hippocampus is at the bottom, that's a data transfer center kind of thing, our RAM. So, unless the child studies by himself for 4 hours, the thinking, collation, connection, reviewing the whole thing as a summary, child himself or herself must do. Teacher teaching cannot do that. Did you understand that? So sometime during the day your son or daughter must have 4 hours that he studies, not tuition teachers teaching. Did you understand this? So unless they study for 4 hours non-stop, what they study will not get to permanent memory. Next day and at the exam, they are not sure what they have studied. So I am speaking to parents, but somehow you need to get this to your kids. Then multitasking will erase your data from your brain. Multitasking is Snapchat, Facebook, go from one thing to the other. Sleep deprivation is very bad for your curricular performance, bad for your morals and character also. So you have to get your sleep between 11 and at least 4:30, undisturbed. More pixel screen after 9 p.m., the more sleep disturbed you will be. As I told you, your dream patterns change and you wake up in the morning crotchety, complaining, yeah. Preserve screen time for essential study. This is how we spend every hour. After this, I'll give you a few minutes for questions. We do salience, ilakwe bala වැඩ work to focus, and the dopamine comes down. These, however, thinking tracts of the prefrontal cortex work. Homeostasis is the right method of brain arrangement. For 45 minutes we study to a focus, or we work to a focus. Then the receptor involved is called DA1, dopamine physiological. If you keep on with this, and then you stop, in 45 minutes you stop, and you do a check back with serotonin. Automatically what we have studied or worked, we stop and think back, did I get it right? What is it connected to? How do I improve? That's the mode of brain thought God has given. How do I improve what I did? But if you are too much on the dopamine tracks, you don't think of how much I improve, you are not checking back. This is not only a curricular problem, this becomes a character problem. Whatever you do is right. They'll never say sorry. Whatever you do is right. So child begins to grow like that, which is not good at all, isn't it? And dopamine shifts from D1 physiological to D2 addictive, so some journals will call the pixel effect electronic cocaine, because this is exactly how cocaine works. Do the same thing repetitively. Any questions?
For a child, what is the best study methodology?
Yeah, don't have LED lights overhead. Reading books is the best study method. Black print on a white background, and teach them even while online to take down notes. Taking down notes is absolutely essential.
Creating your own notes?
While the teacher talks also,
yeah.
And creating your own notes, making your own questions for that study section. Writing is very important. Because of online study, a lot of kids don't write notes.
Yeah.
And many tuition classes also promote not writing but listening. Sometimes you think, I will listen to the record, but you must write down. Writing makes brain brilliant, and if you keep your writing habit, writing 4 A4 papers, A4 pages in 2 languages, you never get Alzheimer. Writing habit is so important. So practice your 2 languages as long as you can, and write in 2 languages as long as you can. Yeah. Yes, so this is called the default mode network of thought. That is how your brain works, whether you think or not. This is how your brain will work. But if you are too much on the digital screen, the dopamine keeps going up, and you are not thinking of did I do well or not. It's okay. And in fact, they will say, don't ask me, it's okay. They will use language like that. Now, this is 2 modus operandi. This is how we should think and do with our prefrontal cortex. It's called top-down regulation. These are normal thinking, working, study pattern. Executive, empathic. Empathic meaning, executive is you think and do, not the screen. Smart screen is smart, the boy gets stupid. Because the smart screen is deciding what you do, you are responding only. Empathic is good for me, good for my future, good for my parents. That's how we should be thinking. Empathy is that. Reflective, creative, initiation, navigation, and what you start, you do to a successful end conclusion, even a love affair. So don't start them when you can't conclude them. Got it, young man? Yeah. Otherwise, we have a risky, perilous generation that's always experimenting with thrill, trouble, risk, peril, which is not a good mode. Yeah. Initiation, navigation, and conclusion, reward. Who says reward? Inside you, the serotonin tracks say, that's good, you can improve like this, keep going. So last hour's proper work is the motivation for the next hour. So if the last hour was full of digital mambo jumbo, next hour will be also full of digital mambo jumbo. In fact, when we work for a long stretch or study for a long stretch, we normally know I have studied for 2 hours or 3 hours. But kids on the screen don't have awareness of time. So if mom comes and says, you have been on the screen for 3 hours, the fellow will say, what rubbish, I already started now. They are protesting. Actually, they have lost sense of time. So this is the track we should be on, top down. We think and do in our decision-making process, and there's a good reward helping us to do the next stuff also well. When we get onto the screen and get into hyperactive pixel activity, it's called bottom-up regulation. It is mediated by amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus. That is, you don't think and do. What you have done in the last hour or half an hour propels you to do the same thing, because neurons are going round and round and round. Then you have dyspathy, I don't care. They use this word often, isn't it? I don't care. Who cares? Impulsive, repetitive, reflexive rather than reflective, reactive, very hostile, come for a fight language. Then they are stressed, thrilled, survive. Later on, they begin to think pain is pleasure. When you are dopamine depleted because you have been so much on games and whatnot, that thrill does not give you enough satisfaction. Then they begin to cut themselves and self-inflicted injury to get endorphins to come and give a opioid-like feeling, cool. So sometime back a girl came and her hand had parents or teachers. So I was talking and the mother started saying, darling, show your arm. So she did. Then again mother said, show your arm to the doctor. So then she lifted this up and there's a big gash about 2 inches. I asked her what happened. She said, it's like this, doctor. Life is all experiment. I wanted to experiment and see what death is like. And she cut herself. So after you experience death, what is there to do? So they get so, thankfully it was not a murderous cut. If she cut an artery or something, she could have died. So they are very serious with it and no remorse. Of course, then I don't show alarm, I sit with them and talk the science and whatnot and get them to, if possible, get back on track. Anti-reward is that they begin to harm themselves because it's cool. It's a medical reaction. Endorphins get secreted, the pain resolving things inside the body. When you get used to endorphins, the opioids inside the body, your body begins to call for opioids outside the body and they get into drug addiction. Did you understand that? Yeah. So that is why screen addiction and drug addiction are related. The greatest push for drug addiction for the younger generation is the screen addiction. Now I am told a lot of girls are into cocaine and a lot of girls peddle drugs also, whereas about 7 years ago, it was the boys peddling. Every boys' school had a student after grade 8 whose dad would peddle drugs through the sun. But now quite a bit of girls are also into this. Yeah. Any questions? Don't know what happens to those kilos and tons of drugs they arrest, isn't it? You get fairly common news reports saying so much drugs were.
Goes back to the system.
That's the thing. Why drug addiction is so rampant and drugs are so freely available. So any other questions you like to ask at this stage? These are the 7 brain tracts with which we live all our life. They begin to be active even in the mother's womb, and all our life we should keep them growing, isn't it? Put them to proper use. This is how you think about yourself, empathic, intuitive, inside you. Some people are very empathic, intuitive, and they are not very relational. That's okay. So for a child like that, you must not say, come out and talk. Some children are not the come out and talk kind. So work with how they have developed. Empathic relational, how you relate to others. And this begins in the mother's womb. So we always advise pregnant moms to take time even during work to speak to the kid as if the kid understands. Sing hymns, pray, because there's a way the little fellow responds to the mother's thoughts. So if the mother is too much on the digital screen, little fellow's brain prostaglandins begin to increase in areas and he gets born with ADHD. Understood? That is, even the mother's reaction to the screen gets transmitted to the little fellow through different mechanisms, and he's in his brain wiring up wrong. Similarly, if parents have conflict, we know that little fellow's brain will wire up wrong. And unfortunately, if mothers have these medical diseases and drugs are used to treat the mother, like pregnancy hypertension, it will also have an effect on the little fellow's brain developing. And when he is born, he will not be sucking milk properly. It's very difficult. He is already hyperactive. Attention is low. So, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder has been a definition for the last 20 years or so. The syndrome is true, but the treatment can't be drugs, because already a neurochemically wrong brain cannot be put right by giving some more drugs. So that's my specialty. I have written on it academically, and it's published in journals. Basic thing we have to tell parents is, when your child is having hyperactivity, don't take to a doctor who will make it worse by prescribing drugs. Did you understand that? So spread that message. The antidote or remedy for children with hyperactive ADHD-like symptoms is not to prescribe more drugs. Okay? Yeah. So that is
what's the alternative?
Alternative is empathic learning therapy and empathic motor therapy.
That we have to go to a specialized...
We do both. We do both. My students and others who know about it refer to us also. But we have to get this known by... SLMA has published my articles also on this subject. But changing medical practitioners' practicing habits, I think, is easier than changing the 225, but is as difficult. You know the 225? Yeah. So we have to constantly keep saying it, because the easiest thing is to prescribe a drug. Whereas my consultation takes about 40 minutes. So where are the doctors who give 40 minutes for a consultation? So it's not your problem, it's our profession's problem. Other thing is, we have to refer people to clinical psychologists, isn't it? That's the solution for our profession, to recognize clinical psychology. Open University now has a curriculum. Yeah, there is. Yeah, but is it clinical psychology? Right. Yeah. So how do you recruit? Yeah. Basic degree. Okay. Recruiting is every other year. Okay. Thank you. So, about the linguistic track, please don't give the screen before the age of 5. The little fellow's language will be ruined. So about 1/3 of the kids that come to me come for speech distortion, speech delay, because till the age of 5, the kid absorbs language by listening to parents and siblings automatically. They can absorb 2 languages. Language cannot be learned from screens. Language must be living, active, related to activity. And feeding time is one of the best times to learn languages. So never give the screen during meal time. Let me repeat it. Never give the screen during meal time, which means father also must not bring the phone to the table. Meal time must be active, interrelated activity, talking time. Yes, so if you give the child the screen before age of 5, child's language gets scrambled. If not, child can learn 2 languages by listening, phonemes and all. And let's say the 2 languages are Sinhala and English. They will speak Sinhala and English. I think it's a gift of God that the brain can do that. Because language is a unique thing, isn't it? Only humans do language. Yeah. This is the linguistic track. More fingers and toes are active, more the child learns the language better. Yeah. And protect your child's language ability. Introduce music early. Music and singing acts like 2 languages. Music makes brain brilliant, and also the fingering of chords is one of the best activities for brain brilliance. Keyboards are also okay. Then child has a logical managerial track, so listening to commands and doing the kids thing. Even when the child is crawling, he's doing 1, 2, 3, 4. When 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, mom is in the kitchen. I just give example. Not that the child knows numbers, but that's what he's doing. He's practicing management. So if you put the child on the screen, he sits on his buttock and looks at the smart screen and becomes stupid. So don't do that. Get the child to move around as much as possible. First 6 to 8 months you can keep the child in the playpen, but in it there must be interactive things for the child to do, and you also must interact with the child. One of the worst things I had was 2 kids growing up in a house where both grandparents, fathers and mothers were living, and they were not talking to each other. So they agreed. So the house had a television. One set of grandparents had a television in their room. Other set of grandparents had a television in their room. So the child did TV safari whole day long from this room to that room. By the time the fellow came to me, 5 or 6 years old, no speech. And he's attacking the mother because he can't express himself. Why does the child attack the mother for father's follies? Yeah, that's a complicated question, I know. A child feels mom should have looked after him. He intuitively feels, why didn't you help me out? Why didn't you? So when they come to an age when they want to express, they can't, they get violent.
So you think that the child is more affectionate towards the mother than the father?
First 3 years, child bonds more with the mother, but father should be there. Mother makes it daily safe, but father must plan his day that he will give the child, I told you, a family time, 7 p.m. Something the father must do with the child every day. Initially a board game and play like a baby and so on. Later teach a subject that he can teach the child patiently. So when the child was unable, he's saying you should have, so while the parents are seated before me, child is attacking the mother. He thinks this is difficulties, was not attended. Pathetic case it was. So the things we do could help speech. We are not a speech therapy center, but kids come because when they are stuck because of the screen they come, but you can go up and see what we do can help a kid to improve speech also, though it is not a primary goal. Primary goal is get kids out of digital abuse, which parents started. So that's the logical management track. Then the kinesthetic track is how much a child is used to movement. If you put the child on the screen, he's all the time his temporal lobe has got active and he is on vikara movement, not related to day-to-day activities. He is imagining things and behaving like a clown all the time, isn't it? He's play acting, he's doing things for effect and drama. He will screech to a halt and throw things, and he has got hyperactive because his kinesthetic tracts are too wired up. That's what happens when the child is on a screen. Same with acoustic and visual to the extent that is related to normal activity. Any amount of screen activity is injurious. The real science is that any time the television is on in the house, the blue frequency that the television emanates will affect the child anywhere in that flow. Did you understand that? Even if the child is studying in the room, the TV screen's blue frequency has a deleterious effect on the child's memory and study patterns. Yeah, so that's how foolish it is to be screen active, you know. So that's about kinesthetic, acoustic, visual. So if the child is on the screen, the first 4 dumb down and the last 3 gets hyperactive. So you have an ADHD child. You understood that, isn't it? So they must be balanced together. Consequences on school life: attention span and depth decrease. Usually a child by the age of 8, let's say 10, should be able to study for 40 minutes. Attention span. Then there's attention depth and attention intensity. How much that is being taught can you absorb? All those dumb down when a child is on pixel activity. Boredom, inability to focus or constraint, chronic fatigue syndrome of the young, especially affects girls, dopamine depletion, so they sleep in class and so on. Learning is uninteresting, regular is boring, fantastic is the craving, thrill-seeking behavior, recruiting anti-reward systems. I told you they cut themselves. Pain becomes pleasure, isolated selfie behavior, so we recommend empathic motor therapy. Redeem your meal time. No screen at meal time. Sit with others for the meal. They often say we hate vegetables, hate fruit, because when vegetables and fruit has serotonin. So when they eat fruit and vegetable, their digital intoxication comes down. Like a drunk man taking rice and curry meal. So when people are on alcohol, they don't want to take a proper meal. The little fellow has learned that. When he's digitally intoxicated, if you eat your proper meal, the digital thing comes down, then he doesn't feel like Ben 10, you know. So he avoids little proper meals, and he tippy tips and junk food. They begin to eat. Cut down sugar, caffeine, and coke. Did you see that post? The uses of Coca-Cola. You saw that post? Please keep a bottle of Coca-Cola always in the toilet to remove stains of the sink and things like that. Yeah, there were 10 uses of Coca-Cola to clean your battery head in your car. Yeah, that was a brilliant post. 10 uses of Coca-Cola. Watch sunset, that is to say, evening, please take half an hour, good for all ages. If you are under LED light, please come out, open the curtain, watch sun setting, because melatonin gets kicked in with sunset. And always get up at about 5:30 to see early sunrise, then the daytime bioclocks kick into place. Suddenly waking up in the morning, late and rushing, is the way you get diabetes. So wake up early with morning sunrise, then the bioclocks and the neurochemistry of the brain does right. Did you understand this? So you have to get kids not to wake up late by doing night activity, you know. Yeah. Revive nighttime melatonin. Sleep by 11 p.m., wake up by 5:30 a.m. Do not take digital gadgets to bedroom. You have to negotiate this with the fellow. Don't fight with them. Plead with them and see that the digital gadget does not go to the bedroom. Can we have an amen on that? Amen is a Hebrew word which means it is true. So please, don't fight with them. Because this generation, if you take a stick or something, they will say, they say like that. So you can't fight with them. Yeah. Remove bedroom TV, no LED lights in the bedroom. Exercise routine, cycling at 5:30 p.m. Swimming is the most brain balancing activity if you can afford it. Any little, you can hang the cricket ball on a thing, and what we used to do for cricket practice to get our eye in. It's a good activity now to get their eye in and that coordination. Then keep a sand track at home and run on it, or whatever, small sand track. Then the sand pit principle, why you get kids to have a sand pit at home when you have kids, because sand is a geometric particle created by God, and a bit of sand, let's say 1.5 feet of sand, can take the weight of a 3-story building. What do you think about God's brain? More brilliant than Darwin's brain, isn't it? Just 1.5 feet of sand can take the weight of a 3-story building, where sand is a geometric particle. So when you play with sand, the geometry of the sand particle is appreciated by the brain. That's the idea. Similarly, grips and ropes. Now when you go up, you will see, there's a photograph also. So when the toes and the fingers are gripping an onchillava kind of thing, all that is recorded in the brain, and it helps brain neuronal activity for studies. Exercise routine, running on homemade sand track, shift to gardening, adopt a pet. Then and there, that's our upstairs thing. Write 4 A4 sheets in 2 languages, restore reading habits if possible, solve math problems. Then puzzles, carom, table tennis. You get, it's you're on your toes, on your fingers, and aim games. All that improves brain aim for studies as well.
Doctor, use exercise routine. Why only in the evening?
Yeah, actually, yeah. The idea was, after 6 p.m. don't do vigorous exercise. Where these fellows go to the gym at 6 p.m. Have you heard of gym deaths? Of exercise nuts? At 6 p.m. brain is getting ready to wind down. Same with your heart muscle. The whole day you have been on your feet. So 6 p.m. is not the time for vigorous activity. I put this 5:30. Avoid doing vigorous physical activity after 6 p.m.
Why not in the morning?
Morning, yes. Of course, this was a antidote for the digital thing. No?
Yes.
Break it with some exercise. That was my point.
Right.
So because people would have been involved in office work, whatnot. So my point I'm trying to make is, after 6 p.m. don't try to do vigorous. I mean, it's okay, you can do a little, but not too vigorous. That was the reason for this very exercise conscious people at the end of the day doing vigorous physical things and dying, getting heart attacks. There was a reason for it. Yeah. So this is some upstairs den and there thing. Can you see these onchilla-like ones? Yeah. So we organize teams to come and compete how quickly you can finish this course. So we have low ropes, mid ropes, and high ropes have to be done with harness and helmet. So one fellow will take about 1 hour 15 minutes to go through these things. So when you have 3 competing teams, let's say Port Tour, Alia, and the telephone, no? Yeah. 3 competing teams, you give marks, and if people drop like that. Similarly, we have a campsite with similar open air course where we have encouraged and organized teams to come and encourage a lifestyle and a leisure style that will prevent digital addiction. That's the idea. This you can see upstairs, different rope methods. I call this guards, grip and rope thrill sport, guards. So I send this to the former Minister of Sports, who is from my school. God bless my school. Pray with the former sports minister. He's from my school, from St. Thomas's he was. Your memory is very short. Suggesting that these things must be put up in a big school in every town so that it will be available, open for kids to come and do this as therapy or as prevention, to make it a national sport competition. But this is not very expensive. Once you install it, anyone can do it, and it has a good effect on the brain. Dhananjay, how do I get this clip working? It's in my, yeah, it's there. Yeah, please try. How will the clip work? This is some of the then and there activity. Yes, please. Huh? Why is this not working? One of the clips you can try. That's the harness and helmet for this is actually a medical therapy, but it's thrilling and entertaining. Other clippers. This is the empathic, we call it learning therapy, kids bakery, and whatever they can do with their fingers. That is training a not yet husband how to help the wife. දැකලා පිළිම ළමයි විතර කඩන හැටි. So this is idea is, you know, they enjoy what they are doing. We call it Kids Bakery. I think there's another clip, that number 12 is a clip. Meetings, number 12 is a clip. Number 12. Okay. Let's see what's the next slide is. Yeah. So here are some of the puzzles that I have already, remedies I have mentioned. Puzzles, mechanoset, you know the mechanoset, that a screwdriver goes this way, spanner goes this way. So usually mechanosets, I think little fellows start using it about 6, 7. What I say is Dad must sit with him and get him to do. They are also corrective for digital addiction. Matty molding, stitching, artwork, table tennis, carom, board games, keyboards, hymns, guitar, yeah. Why did this got stuck? Have we finished it? Huh? I don't think. It's the last one? Then get on to, there's another one, Kids Family 2, I think. Let's see. Yeah.